Hello and welcome back to another Coach Dave Academy lap guide video. My name is Bart and today we'll be taking the Superformer Lights car and iRacing for a lap around the Fuji International Circuit without the chicane this time and in some very, very wet conditions. Okay, heading down the straight now at Fuji International Circuit. First corner is a hairpin, not too complicated, at least in theory. It's a little bit off camber in a way, and it's blind, like it's quite hard to see through this hairpin, considering it's a hairpin. So there is a bit to it for sure, especially in the wet, as we've got here. Do keep in mind this is moderate wet, so wet conditions you could get in a race could vary from less to worse than this quite easily, but this is supposed to be a guide as well as we possibly can, so take all the references with a pinch of salt, okay? It's not like every time it rains it's going to be exactly the same amount of water on the track. So if I say the braking references here, that's rough. You might have to brake early, you might have to brake later, so just keep that in mind, but in general this is a pretty good reference for what you should be doing. All right, so first corner. The first thing I do here, okay, we don't want to be braking on the rubber, not in the wet, not in a heavy braking zone. It's the worst possible place to have your car on a wet track is on the rubber in a heavy braking zone. That is a one-way trip to the barrier every single time. So please don't do that. If you're going to do anything to do with wet lines, taking different lines than you would in the dry conditions, do not brake on the rubber in a heavy braking zone ever. It's the worst thing to do. Okay, so first thing I do here, I've got the pit line here, the pit exit line. It's a fantastic guide for me. It's perfect. You basically run up to this. See where it goes straight here. You get right up to this. This is bang on. You don't want to be on the dry line on the left. You go back basically like you see a car to the right. Between the dry line and this white line here, perfect. Don't brake on the white line. That's almost as bad as the rubber. Not quite, but don't brake on that either. Just try and brake in this beautiful slot we have here towards that red Yokohama Y. Braking reference, again, just after the white line goes straight is pretty good for me. It's the start of the curve on the left. You have the 100 board. I mean, this is ridiculously late, but this is how much grip you have in this car. Okay, so braking in a straight line now. Again, it sounds obvious. Keep the wheel straight. Don't try to open up the track or do anything crazy. You want to be straight. We need to brake efficiently. Brake straight. Okay, cool. Down to second gear. Remember, we want to go just past the rubber. So go past where you would go in the dry. We're going to rotate the car off the rubber, especially with our left tire, our front left. That's the one that has to do the most work here to rotate the car. The inside tires are kind of in the air at this point, so we don't need to, we're not doing as much work at this point, so we don't need to worry about them too much. Turn the car, get it rotated, just start to pick up a little bit of throttle. This is when it gets a bit tricky at this corner, okay? Because you're going to kind of join the rubber again on the exit. The car's going to want to move around. Try and get the lock off as quick as possible. You could run deeper and cut back more. I think you lose too much time. It's too slow a corner, so if you're going a bit deeper, you just lose so much time from slowing the car down too much, taking the extra distance. It's not worth it. So it's almost, how late could you go on the brakes here? Well, just getting the car past the rubber, like barely past the rubber line, just to get it turned. That's pretty much the aim there. Get the lock off, have a little drift, have a little bit of fun. Bit tricky, but should be okay. Low speed corner. Let the car out to the white line here. Don't go on the white line of the curb. That again is horrendous. You'll see around the lap, the curbs are generally a no-no, so we'll get into that as we go round. Easy flat now. This car is pretty safe here. Not enough power to cause any trouble. Over to the right, just as we would in the dry. You don't really want to brake offline here because it's not a long enough braking zone to make a difference. Down to fourth gear now in the wet. Soft brake again. This isn't far off the dry line, to be honest, because it's just too much distance. You have to slow down too much to go off the dry line here. But we're just going to be fractionally off the rubber. So you can see I'm just about a car width away from the apex at this point. Just focus on carrying speed in fourth. Let the car run out a little bit off the inside, as we see there. Avoid the inside curb. The car's going to drift as we, again, cross the rubber a little bit on throttle. You don't really want to be on this curb, but I've been forced out on this lap, and if you're pushing it, it will happen a bit. If you're on the second part of this curb, on this bit here, you're in big trouble, so just watch out for that. That's pretty much the limit. If you run more than that, you're in trouble. The exit's not very long here, so I don't need the tractions. That's why I'm able to just push the entry there, carry speed, and just end up on the limit of the curb there. Be very, very careful of that one. Okay, so into this right now. Long right-hander. You could turn in early. I'm going to go wide. So I'm going to let the car run past the rubber line. You can kind of see it. So if you can see what I'm saying, this is grippy. This is the rubber line. It's got a slight sheen to it. It may not be this visible depending on how much rubber you have on track, etc., and the rain and so on. But you can see here, this is where the rubber line is pretty much, and this is where it isn't either on the inside. We could keep it tucked on the inside, but then we cross the rubber up here, which isn't ideal. So what we're going to do is keep the car absolutely pinned. It's flat out. I'm going to let the car run straight for a little bit, and I'm going to turn the car out here. Seems a little bit bizarre, but we'll get into that in a second. All right, let the car run deep, let it run past the rubber, flat out, actually changing up. So I'm accelerating through the corner in the wet, into fifth gear, using all the downforce. Now I turn in, nice and smooth, okay? Turn the car in. Don't let the car out to the white line. Stay away from that. But keep the left-hand side tires off the rubber. You see I've got them off the rubber. Now I've got the car turned. I can rejoin the rubber here. It doesn't really matter too much. And again, you've got so much downforce. Keep the car pinned here as well. It keeps the rear nice and settled. You have so much downforce once you get the tires warmed up at this point. The car just sticks. It's fine here. You can see how good it is. Just be smooth on the steering. That's the most important thing. If you let it run deep, open up the corner, be smooth, it's flat out. It's actually really, really fun. Let the car out to the left. Quickly get it back to the right. You're not going to be able to get it truly straight for braking. You can see I'm kind of doing a diagonal, so I'm braking as straight as I can. Not much steering lock on, but just trying to go in this direction. Again, braking late, trying to get off the rubber at this point. So brake deep, run past the rubber, just there, down to third gear. You start in second. Third gear bogs quite a lot, but if you're carrying enough speed and you're being very aggressive on throttle, you'll need third because second gives you some traction issues. But third gear for me here, again, you can see my right tires are just past the rubber. They're just on the edge. Down to second for myself on this lap. But like I said, third can work. It can actually be easier, but second helps you get a better exit. It's just a little bit on the edge. So watch out for that. Might depend on setup and conditions a bit as well here. On throttle nice and early. It's such a long corner. Getting on throttle will also put the weight back onto the rear axle, so give you a bit of traction initially as well. The car will sit, get some rear stability. Don't be aggressive on the steering. Be smooth. Again, ideally in the weight, you want to kind of do what we did at the hairpin, which is run deep, rotate off the rubber, and get the lock off. But I mean, we're turning all the way till up here, so we got no choice. Unfortunately. So just have a little bit of lock on, just enough to keep yourself on the track, kind of. Let the car stay off the rubber line. Don't bring it back up. Don't let it cross back. That's another reason we get on the throttle so early here. By getting on the throttle so early, we're keeping the car outside of the rubber all the way around the corner. Keeping it wide, up to third gear. Just meet the white line there. Not quite hit it. Good. And by the time you cross the rubber again, you should have all your traction at that point. You should be full throttle. You should be fine. Okay, flat out through that bit is all fine. Into this really tricky 90 right. So this is where the chicane normally is. This corner is very, very tricky in the wet for a few reasons. The main reason is it's not very wide in the apex or the kind of mid to exit range of the corner. As a result, there's not much grip on any part of the corner, is I guess what I'm trying to say. And it's also a braking zone that's very affected by rubber. This means that you can't open up the corner on the entry and turn in like you can at turn 2. It means it's unlike a hairpin like turn 1, you can't really go deep and cut back because you've slowed the car down too much by that point, and there's not really enough room to turn the car by running deep. So you're kind of, it's a bit awkward. So we'll get to that in a second. It's very tricky. So braking for me, braking before the 50 board on the right, you got this Dunlop signing on the right where that starts is also pretty good as well. The crash fence on the right. Braking as straight as you can. You can see I'm kind of on the rubber. So yeah, okay, technically this is the rubber. My right tire is kind of off it. This is so tricky, and I'm not going to say like this is exactly the way you have to do it, but this is what worked best for me. If you're here, you'll have more grip. You'll be able to brake later. Great for you. You're a champion. But you'll brake, and then you'll turn here, and you'll understeer, and you'll have not a very good time basically because you'll be going off the track probably out here or getting a penalty or having to slow down a lot for this curb. If you go here and you hit the brakes, you will just not stop. You'll just slide, and that's not really fun either. So you'll be braking back about 100 meters earlier than me. So we're going to meet in the middle here and kind of open up the track as much as possible while still not being fully on the rubber line. You can see we're not fully over where we'd be in the dry. So a bit awkward this, but you see I'm kind of lined up with this white part of the fencing. The way I look at it is I kind of get half my car on the rubber line here, about a car with away from the left-hand side of the track. Okay, but we can be straight, okay? We can be as straight as we can here on the brakes. And this is actually one that's a bit easier to see on the telemetry as well. All right, now, so looking at the very interesting lap period in Fuji, you see all these corners actually quite similar minimum speeds, look quite similar here. Going into this very, very tricky 90 right we get on the no chicane layout. So, like I said, in the wet, you can't really get very far off the rubber here, just how it is. So I've got the car straight on the brakes, but pointing at an angle so that I start the braking zone more off the rubber and I end it open up the corner a bit more, but still not being fully on the left-hand side of the track because there's just no grip there. A bit tricky, but again, halfway house here. We're just trying to manage things. So braking, again, smoothly ramping into the brakes, not too aggressive, not too slow either. Firm, nice brake hit, 50% brakes, not too hard because we're in the wet conditions, even though it's heavy braking zone, down 2 gears, down a third. At this point in the braking zone, so I've got a little bit of steering on as I'm kind of drifting towards the left-hand side of the track. I just start to release the brakes just off that second gear shift. I start releasing the brake pressure and I start turning into the corner at the exact same time. So try and have your left foot and your steering in sync there, like connected by a string. As soon as I come out of the brakes, I'm starting to turn into the corner. Okay, so releasing that brake pressure, turning into the corner now. You see I've got a little bit of brake on just to not let the car run too deep. And once you get past the rubber, that's the point where you can drop the brake. You run a bit deep past the rubber line in the middle of the track. Drop the brake, really put the steering on up to 30% now. You'll wait a second. The front should bite at this point, and that's where you can pick up throttle. You can see initially I pick up a bit of throttle, keep the car off the rubber, and then I can start coming off the lock as I start to open up the exit and kind of fighting building this exit curve. It's quite a tricky exit, but the main thing with the braking is just do the most of the braking in a straight line, just try and be nice and consistent with that, and then being very smooth as you come off here, but just in general being very careful with the car. So as you've seen there, tricky braking, getting the angle right into the corner, letting it run a little bit deep, turning again, unfortunately on the rubber. If you turn off the rubber here, which is the theory in the wet that we're going with, you're so slow and you're taking so much distance, you just lose. So you gotta suffer basically here. This is why it's so tricky. Turn in, third gear, you'll turn in, look at the understeer I get. It's fantastic, isn't it? So you just got no grip, so you're just going to miss the apex. Great. I tried hooking on the curb. Kind of works. But you just end up fighting the car too much on the exit. It's not quite as quick as this. So I find here what's best is just getting kind of off the rubber. We're not really. We're just less rubber, let's say. It's a bit grippier in the middle of the track. It's a halfway house, It's the best we can do here. So we were halfway off the rubber on the braking zone. Now we're halfway off the rubber at the apex as well. And there's a lot of rubber here because it's, people normally take the normal layout, not the chicane one. Left tires are off the rubber at this point. This is where we actually want the grip. So this is where I picked up the throttle. Just when I've run deep, that understeer, you'll feel the car push. As soon as it starts to bite at the front a little bit and you actually turn and not just go off into the distance somewhere, that's your cue to pick up the throttle. And that's why I take third, by the way, because it can very well be second. You might be thinking, I cannot turn. I cannot stop. I need second gear. Go in third. Trust me. Go in third. Pick up the throttle as soon as you get some grip. And that way you won't wheel spin or slide. You'll just be sitting there going, but it helps you and for what we're about to get to as well. So on throttle, car's off the rubber for this nice little bit of time. We're actually going to get a little bit of rotation and actually accelerate a bit, which is good. You'll run onto the curb. I know I said the curbs are slippery, but you need it here, okay? You need to use all the track you can because we're just understeering off. And if you're in the third gear, it's not so dramatic. It's not so bad. If you're in second, probably is a big problem. But we're in third, so it's all good. So run in third, run on the curb. Important, not much grip. As soon as you have actually got the car pulled up, get off it, which is what I'm doing here. Also, keep the wheel straight. If you're turning on this, that's how you end up in the barrier. Just be smooth, okay? Just be smooth. And don't go on the grass, obviously. All right. Okay, so you can see the car's wheel spinning a little bit, struggling, but here we are. Not a very long straight either, so we can kind of get away with that. Keep the car on the left. Again, you could brake off the rubber here to the right. I've tried it, but you just compromise the next section. And it's more important to prepare what's coming next. So we're actually going to stay left here and do what we do at turn 2, which is brake on the rubber, I run past it, and then turn. All right, so braking here, point towards this panel. This is the light panel up here. Braking a straight line. Down to third gear, let the car run past the rubber, then rotate. Try and meet the white line around the back end of the corner. You can see normally we would meet it a bit earlier in the drive, but we don't have the grip to bring the car back. So what we're going to do is actually try and meet the white line at the end of this bit of runoff here where it meets the grass. Get the white line there. Third gear, again, I tried second. Can work, but third's better because we have no traction, basically. So if you're in third, you can just roll speed. Not worry about having to get the throttle so early and just wheel spin and drift a little bit. It's a bit safer. See the car's moving around as we're on the rubber. Unfortunately, it is tough through here. Bring the car over to the right. You can see just past the rubber now on the right-hand side. Bring the car right. Keep your right-hand side tires off the rubber as well as possible. Super easy to crash here just by holding it to the inside and braking here and then turning and then, yep, bang, there you go. But just keep the car on the right-hand side off the rubber as well as you can. Now, unfortunately, we're going to have to meet the rubber, otherwise we're just not going to stop for the corner. Braking very soft, okay, very gentle. This is where you have no grip. You're turning, you're on the not very grippy part of the track. All sorts of stuff's going on, right? It's not ideal. So we're just going to brake very, very soft. Just slow the car down. Be patient. And again, prepare the car. Because we could cut to the inside, but it just doesn't gain you anything. So you need to prepare for what's coming next. Once again, hold the car tight to the left. You won't make the apex here, just won't. The grip's not there unless you go very, very slow. So you're going to run a bit deep. Down to second gear this time. Let the car run out to the white line here. It's going to be a bit loose, but just try and come off the steering. Be smooth. Don't use the curb. I've touched it once or twice. It is not nice, so try to avoid that if possible. Okay, bring the car to the left. You could think, oh, Bart, are we going to go around the rubber again? Not quite. This one's a bit weird, actually, what works well. So you could go all the way around the rubber up there, but what I find actually works better, go left to open this bit up as much as possible. Yes, I know we're on the rubber right now. Just ignore that. Run to the left as much as you can, and we're actually going to try and brake under the rubber. First time we're doing that today, pretty much. But yeah, we're going to kind of cut back underneath it here and brake up into this direction. We're going to apex pretty much similar to the dry, but we're basically going to keep the car in. So here you can see I've got the car just about inside the rubber at this point. It's how fast can you be and still kind of keep it on a grippy part of the track. Try and get it as straight as possible. So I've got a straightish angle by turning in late. If I turn in earlier, so I turn in and I'm pointing this way and go deep, you end up having to do more of a corner. This is the other way you can do the corner, right? Is go deep, cut back. You do get a very good exit doing that, so it does help with setting up a lap. But you lose so much time in the middle of the corner by taking extra distance and being super slow in the middle. Overall, this is much faster. This is definitely the quickest way to do it. So get the car in, braking nice and gently down to second gear. You kind of, again, run just past the rubber at that point. So cut underneath the braking, let the car run straight and deep, rotate the car here, bring the car around. It should be very slow at this point. to the white line around the end of the curbing here. Get the car as straight as possible, as quick as possible. Bit of wheel spin, should be okay. Up the gears now, got the car straight, and that is just a straight run now to the end of your lap at Fuji. All right, then that brings us towards the end of the video now. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below. And you can also find more information about Coach Dave Academy in the Discord link in the YouTube video description. You can find out about coaching, setups, and more from people like me. All right, hope you enjoy the video. See you next week.